So, hello everyone. Now we're gonna recreate this animation. And we're gonna start by creating simple shapes and get the mechanics right. And then we tweak the animation and the design as we go. So, create a new project. I already have one. And get our grid. And then we go to our project settings, Command D, and make sure that our key interpolation is linear, and get our PSR bottom up here. So Shift C, PSR, and drag it up there. And then we're gonna start off by creating a tube. Change the orientation to set. And we can take the inner radius to 17 and outer to 20. And the height to 10. Yeah, that's good. Put that inside of a null, Alt G. We can rename it to wheel. And then we put it up 20, because we know the radius is 20 of the tube. And now we're gonna make this rotate and roll in the X position. And for that we're gonna calculate a little bit. And if we take the radius times 2, 20 times 2 is 40 obviously. And then we take that times 3.14. Then we get this number, 125.6, but we can round that off to 126. And that number is the perimeter of this tube. And that's the length it will travel in the X position. So take the wheel, and at frame 0 we put a keyframe. And then we go forward around 56 frames, because that's what I had in my original animation. And there we put 126. And that will be one perfect lap. So on the rotation, on frame 0 we put 0. And on the frame 56 we put 360. And there we go. And as we did earlier, create a native material. Go to texture, surfaces, checkerboard, put it on there so we can see how it looks, and it looks good. Let's create our camera. So first of all, a null, frame 0, put a keyframe, frame 56, 126. Get the camera, put it in there. Call this one dolly, the null. Yeah. Jump out of it and hide it. Okay, so let's start create the arm. For that we're gonna use a rectangle. Make it smaller. Let's see, 50 and 10. And we use the rounding on this one as well. Get extrude. And when you get into this menu, and if you hold Alt, it will automatically go into the selected object. So now my rectangle was selected, and I go here and Alt press, and it goes in there. And we can make it, 4 is good. And for this one we want the anchor point to be here in the end of the rectangle. So let's create a null, shift the view to front. Oops. And then we move this -20 in the X. And then we put in the extrude in there. Rename this to arm. Nice. And now we need this point to be constrained to follow this wheel. So then we need something to leech onto, and that a null would be good, I think. So inside of the wheel, let's create a null, and by pressing and holding down shift and releasing, it will snap down to the selected item. And this one we can call arm PSR. And we need to place that around so 14 in the X. And now we need to add a character tag on this one, on the arm. So go to character tags and constraints, choose PSR, go into this tab here and drag in the arm PSR null. And there we go, it's parented to that object. But we need this part to aim towards something else. So then we need a name for that. So create another null, call it aim, drag it forward a bit. And I usually hold in shift when I'm drag stuff, so it's even numbers. And then we take the PSR again, go back to basic tab and check aim as well. Go into the aim tab and drag in our aim. And it will look a little bit weird here because we don't have the right axis. So change that to X. And now you'll see it points at this aim null all the time. And we don't want this to be inside of our wheel. So let's move our arm a little bit, or this one, the arm PSR inside the wheel a bit. I guess 8 is good. And then we need to move our aim as well. 8 in set. Okay, we can start to get some design done here as well. So inside this wheel we need something, and we would like to add a circle. So select this one, hold down, press shift and release, and you get the circle inside of the null. And we know that the inside of this tube is 17, so we can just choose 17. And we actually want to create a ring, so press ring here. So we want the inner radius to be, let's say, 10. That's good. And now we want this to be perfectly in the middle here, so press PSR and it will snap perfectly. And then we need some extrude. So hold in Alt and it will snap perfectly there. Make it 8. And move it -4 I guess in the set. There we go. And we need the sort of a cylinder in between here as well. Let's add that. And it's gonna be aligned with this arm PSR. So hold on that one, get into the menu, hold shift and release. PSR, make it a little bit smaller so we can see what we're working with. There we go. We need to change the orientation to set. A little bit in the set. That's a little bit too big, so 20 will do. And also we would like to have a cylinder back here as well, or in the front. So take our cylinder and hold command, and we can just drag it up here. And we want it inside of the arm. So drag it in there, PSR. And then we know that we need to move it 40 centimeters. So hold in shift and just drag. And it will snap there perfectly. And for this one, we need it to be a little bit smaller. 10 maybe. Because it's gonna be able to go through this little space here. So maybe even a little bit smaller. 8. 8 will do for now. So I think we can add some ground now, or some base for it to walk on. And for that we're gonna use some cubes. Make it in the X. We can start Y to 20 maybe. Set 40. And for the X position, it's pretty important to make it loopable. And we know that our wheel here is traveling 126 centimeters. So this number need to be 126 or 126 divided by 2 or divided by 4. It's all about how you want to design it. So let's take 126 divided by 2. And we can make it a little bit, we can make it like this. 10 in the Y. And then we're gonna add a cloner to this one. And get the cube inside the cloner. And we don't want it to go in the Y, we want it to go in the X. And we know that this cube is 63 in the X. So now they align perfectly. And we don't see it now, but if we add some fillet to it, now we can see. And we need to move it down a little bit as well. And we know that the cube is 10. So on the coordinates, write -5. And it aligns perfectly. And we probably need to add a couple of more clones here. 6 is probably enough. And we can go into our camera and we can set the camera sort of how we would like to have it. A little bit tighter, 135. And then we also can change the aspect ratio to the one we will have in the end, and that's 1080 times 1080. Instagram. And we need to add some cubes back here. But we're just gonna move the whole cloner back a bit. But we need to do it with the correct numbers. So we can do it with -126. And now we'll see that it loops perfectly. We can actually add one more, so it's 7 count. 7 cubes. And there we go. So let's start animating this aim a little bit. And this animation will be dependent on, the aim will be dependent on the rotation and the x position of the tube or on the wheel. So we have to start off to put down our keyframes, and then we're gonna tweak them along the way. So the first thing would actually be to get some nice movement on the wheel, and then we start animating the aim. So let's head into the F-curve editor, go to our wheel, and then we have the X and rotation. And for this one, we won't use time track because we need to adjust it a little bit because to get the aim right. So for this one, we actually need to tweak these ones individually. And we want it to sort of be slow in the beginning and start dragging from the aim here, get some speed and then lose some speed. And what I did in my animation was that it went up and then it actually went back a little bit, and we want to recreate that here as well. So about around frame 140 we can create 2 new keyframes, and you do that by just pressing Command and click on the spline. Then we move this up, and we know this is 360, so we can take 360, let's say 70, and we'll see. And this one is 126, 128. And I think we're gonna add our hooks, so we have a reference for this one where it should be. And for the hooks, we're gonna use a cube, and let's make it 2 in the Y, and in the X we can use, let's say 20, and for the Z 2. I think that will do. And then we add a bend to it, and then we take fit to parent, bend it, and the bend never gets in the right position, so select the bend, and yeah, we need to add some divisions on the X, so add 20 here. And now we're gonna rotate the bend minus 90. And this one we're also gonna, and the strength gonna be 90 as well. And check this one, keep Y-axis length. And then we can tweak the bend a bit. It's probably gonna be 2 there, yes. Something like this. And now we want even numbers here as well. So on the Y we would like to have 2. No. 1. Yes, we want 1. And on the Z we want 6. So it travels perfectly in between there. And on the X, we want 53. I'm gonna display the lines here so I can see everything properly. I think we're gonna cheat a little bit with our even numbers here. So for the tube, the X position, just match it up with this hook here. And we can name this carbine. And there we go. And now we know that the next one, that's gonna be around here somewhere, needs to be 126 centimeters ahead. So take this one, hold in command and drag it up, get another one, and just type plus 126. And there we go. And now when we have this one, we can start to tweak the animation of the aim. And we need to animate the aim in the X and the Y. So at frame 0, when you have aligned it, we can put down 2 keyframes. Go to our F curve. And now in the beginning, we want it to stay there for a while, around 10 frames. But as you see, this wheel is pushing it forward. So that was the tricky part about this animation. Because the first thing it does, the rotation just go downwards, and it actually don't go a lot backwards. When we hear in the animation, the arm PSR goes a lot backwards, but here it only goes downwards. So what I did is that I actually moved on the wheel both the X and the B, or actually only the rotation, I moved up a bit. So this is the starting point around here. Actually, I know that I had 38 here, so we can just put in 38 at the first frame. And then we just clean up this one to 398 as well. Now we will have more backwards movement of this part. So now let's say that we want the dragging to be last for around 12 frames. So we just add 2 keyframes on the rotation and the X. And we actually need to cheat a bit and make the rotation go a little bit quicker than the position. So let's see what we can do here then. We can move this one up a bit. And as you can see, already we get a little bit more, it stays a little bit better in place. And if we have this frame as a reference, we can see here, and here it goes a little bit too quick. So then we can just, start to tweak this curve a little bit. And this, I remember this was a little bit tricky. And there we have something good. Good enough. Jump into our camera and have a look. Now we need to move the aim. When we're done with the dragging, the aim needs to travel quickly here, forward. So go into our F curve, go to our aim. So it's gonna hold its position to frame 13. There. And then one frame we know that it will have is the last frame, and on the last frame it should have on the X it's gonna be this number. So I guess it's easier to do it out here. So the first frame is 52 point la la la. So take this, copy it, go to the last frame, paste that, and then plus 100 plus 126. And Y position gonna be the same. So now it needs to travel a lot quicker so it don't go down in the ground. So make this a spline by pressing Alt E or press this bottom up here. And we can just start to tweak this a bit. And we want it to go up a bit as well. So just add a frame here somewhere, there. Make this a spline as well. Well, that's something. And we also know that in the end here we wanted to sort of slam it down hard into the carbine. So then we need this kind of curve. And this is just a matter of tweaking to the kind of animation you want to have. Let's see how that looks. We can probably work a little bit on the wheel as well. We can see it slides a little bit here. And we don't want that. So go to the wheel, X and B position. And if it slides, we actually need to add more rotation. We can drag this up a bit. And we want it to ease a little bit more as well. We can, on the X we can, on this keyframe we can go up to 130. think this was a little bit too much. 420. And we still, or I want more easing on this in this part, so let's review this one. Let's drag this out a bit. Yeah, that's better. He slides a little bit. And actually we can drag these ones up so it's not perfectly eased here. Because when he snaps into the carbine, all the animation stops. Yes, and I think we're pretty good here. And what I'd like you to do is please continue to tweak the animation to how you like it to be. I mean, you maybe want the arm to go a little bit different. You want it to go quicker, slower, or however. And it takes some time to tweak it perfectly. So give it some time, give it some love. And then in the next lesson, we will start to add the design, find a nice angle, get some texture on it, and yeah, make it ready to render. So, see you then. Bye.